So I just want to make a quick YouTube video about this because it seems to be coming up and it's a really important topic. And I don't know how to make it into a question. So, I mean, the question I originally was going to have was, wait, what did I just do? You're like, I don't know. Uh, what are uh, contextual rooted command trees? And this is my new term. We thought, and Mossy's not here. It was one of our community members who told me the idea that people were referring to this by saying fluid and fluid APIs or fluid command line APIs. And I have not found any reference for that yet. So Mossy, if you're out there, let me know. Put a comment in. If there's anybody on YouTube who knows about this, who's got an actual term for this. So I'm going to describe what it is, and I'm going to use my best way of describing it, which the community and I have recently just kind of come up with. Maluba had an idea, but I'm going to tell you what it is, and then we're going to come up with a name for it because this is really becoming spectacularly popular. And so we're seeing. So let me just summarize what's happening. I'm going to tell a little story. So, if you go back to the boomer days, a lot of good things came from the boomers, the internet, C, Unix, a bunch of other stuff. But one of the horrible things that came from the boomer generation is stuff like this. GPG. This is the epitome of boomer get opt hell. And I can sit here and hold my finger down and you can see all of the potential options for a good 60 seconds there. And all of those things have dash in them and everything else, right? And it's absolutely horrible. In fact, there's other programs that still use this, kubectl being one of them. So, I mean, they do have kind of a top level of contextual thing, but beyond that, right? You're like, it does kind of give you contextual stuff a little bit, right? So, but you still have like a ton of options to deal with, and it becomes so unwieldy that you can't do it. You have these top level commands, and then but beyond that, you're relegated to command hell with dashes. Okay, so if you go back to the 70s when people had constraints on memory and everything, this thing called getopt was invented. All right, and getopt is the thing that from which all of the modern command lines that not modern, but semi-modern command lines have used. It's the idea of having a switch with a dash or two dashes, and there's varying and there's competing things, and this entire hellish world that we live in that where everything has to have dashes in front of it is finally dying. And can I just tell you how happy I am that this is dying? So, I have a mantra, don't get mad, get busy. And I was so annoyed by this entire thing that I built Bonsai. And this question isn't about Bonsai. I'll talk about that another day. But if you go to my github.com/RDBXRob, so Bonsai is my way of dealing with this. And it makes very elegant contextual rooted command hierarchies or rooted command trees. And so instead of having all of these dashes, like my Z command, you just do Z-tab, and you get a number of composite command trees. I call them bonsai trees or bonsai branches. And by the way, you can import them very easily just with one import command from Go, which is one of the reasons I love Go. And you can also create alternative paths through the rooted node graph, which is the data structure we're using here. And this Bonsai is something that came about for me completely independent without knowing any of these other products that are doing the same thing. So let me give you an example. So if I go to tab for on unique, I tab again, and I get all of these variations on uniqueness, right? And I can type hex. Let's do isosec. Well, oh my God, that's like too much to type. Well, you can create a shortcut through that if you want to. That's just, you can create shortcut commands that zoom right down to the bottom level of the contextual thing. And then you deal with switches and stuff, like whether you want your output in YAML and things like that. All of those things you might actually be able to justify a switch for are now stateful. And so that means like if I have a command that needs to say, okay, I prefer YAML as my output, then we have like var, and we have a thing called var, and we have a thing called config, and you can save those things in a stateful contextual way that sticks into your home directory, and that's all built in. And those are, you don't have to put that into your monolith, but you can do it. So those are, and by the way, this approach that I did with Bonsai is elsewhere. So let me give you an example. So even kubectl has a hint of this, right? So kubectl tab, you get all these options, right? But if you go kubeconfig, right? With kubectl config, like, wow, look at all these other commands, right? And so then we're going to do available commands. Wait, what happened? All right, so get context. So kubectl is kind of doing the same thing, right? But it still has -- current and all these other things that you have to add, right? But I did want to bring this up. I only have one context right now. If you're so this is an example of stateful contexts entering into the mainstream, and it's not just here. You're having more and more commands that are expecting they're providing like a default context or state. And I mean, this is revolutionary when it comes to like, what we used to do. The idea that a specific command like kubectl or anything would have state that's stored in your home directory that you can then change rather than dealing with this switch every time. I mean, because the answer to this up to this moment has been write a bash script or something like that. That's got all of the particular, options that you want in there, or an alias or something, right? I mean, let me give you an example. So ls, right? So ls, my ls command is actually ls-h color equals auto. Color equals auto. If ls had been written to be a stateful, command, then these kind of things would automatically be stored in a sort of standard way within the home directory of the user, rather than as an alias, right? With these crazy ass, human readable thing. Like, and if we actually did this kind of thing more frequently, we would have the ability to transfer our preferences in a single file or directory under .config or .local or cache, and like that. So this is, I'm thankful to say that this is where the universe is going. Thank God, is that we are allowing state to be added to even things as granular as ls, rather than create these aliases and stuff. And we see that in kubectl. When we do kubectl config, we get to change the context, and all our commands are based on that namespace or based on that preference. But unfortunately, we can't set our default output format. That would be fantastic, wouldn't it? How many of you would like to change your output format for kubectl to default to wide? Probably a lot of you, or to YAML, or to JSON. You probably want for the duration of a session to change that, instead of having to use that fucking switch on every single time you go back into your history and go edit it. No amount of Z shell or fish, assistance on the command line is going to overcome the bad design that forces you to put that switch on every fucking command line every time. If that had been turned into a stateful configuration parameter, I'm sorry, I'm swearing. I normally don't do that on YouTube, but this stuff gets me very angry. Ping would have a config. If we dare to give ourselves permission to give all commands state and context and rooted, command trees, the world would become a better place. And I'm very grateful to report that this is already sneaking into our world. Let me show you a few examples. So the first one I know of is Git. The first substantial program to violate the one thing, do one thing well idea was Git. And ironically, Git still fulfills that. Git is just a front end. There's actually a ton of commands in here. So you can git add. It used to be multiple commands, right? So the old days of doing one thing well, and that still applies, that refactoring into one thing well, but in 2022, we've allowed ourselves to say, look, we have memory, we have disk space. It's okay to put these one thing well things inside of monoliths that travel around, and that's what Bonsai is, by the way. And then that way, we have the portability of it all, but we bring all of that functionality with us. So, BusyBox did this very thing. You guys ever seen BusyBox? Every single command from Unix, all the base Unix commands, this is not new. right? It's been used. It's been multi-call binaries before, but let me do a Docker thing. So Docker, some people might not know this. Actually, I have Podman on here. Let me see if this will work. A Podman dash it dash run. I mean, how annoying is it that I have to type all that, right? Isn't it? I mean, I am running Podman so frequently with these parameters that I would want that to be my default context, but I can't do that, right? It drives me crazy. Why can't I tell Podman or Docker that by default I want to remove the things after I run them? I have to type dash dash rm every fucking time because it has no sense of state. It should, and I might actually redo a Podman that has it that way, but unfortunately, no. So it still has a command. So I'm going to do run. And I just want to show you Alpine, which is the most popular Unix distro. Okay, fine, Docker. Just to get it out of here. Whoops, run. What am I doing wrong? Exec Alpine, right? I cannot remember my Docker commands right now. What am I doing wrong, people? I'm doing something wrong. Does it have to be before the flags? Okay, thank you for helping me make my case further. I mean, how annoying is that? I'm glad that happened on the stream live because that's exactly what I'm talking about. The flags are part of the command. Sometimes they're not, though. There has been several commands where it does not matter where they appear in the command line, right? But some do. Yeah, whatever. I mean, it's super annoying. It's super annoying because, I mean, how many times have I written this command? I still can't remember it. I should have been able to just tab my way through the thing and figure out the syntax. If it had had a human-friendly, rooted command tree, that I would already know what to do, right? And if one of those commands is help, then I could say, okay, well, this particular command has state, and I can set the state variables for that thing, such as remove yourself every time. Whatever. So here we are on Alpine. Let me just show you what I'm talking about. So if you go to this /bin and you do ls-l, you'll notice right away that there's a bunch of stuff that's symlinked, right? If you go look at the same stuff on BusyBox, it's hard links. It's actually kind of interesting. You want to see the difference? They're all the same file. They're all the same. This is called a multi-call binary. And this is a very early version, probably the earliest version of a contextual command interface. So they maintained, the one thing good kind of mantra from Unix and from the Unix philosophy, but then they hid it from everybody by making all of them individual commands. And those commands are all in a single binary. That binary fits on a floppy disk, on a 1.5 megabyte floppy disk. That's why BusyBox was created. And you can go back on, a lot of people don't know this, but you can go, let's do the same thing. Let's run BusyBox this time, assuming I can get the command right. And you just go into bin here, and you'll see hard links this time. So the way you know it's a hard link is you got 401 hard links here. They're all exactly the same size binary, and they all look like they're actually separate. No, they're all hard links. And yeah, and so yeah, this is the modern era, though. So the modern era started with BusyBox, really. But these days, the closest thing, I mean, Git was the first one. Git said, Torvalds said, we got memory. I'm going to put all of the commands into Git. Now, Git is almost its own, thing. And strictly speaking, these command lines that we're using for Git or whatever are domain-specific languages. And you know what? If we had treated them like that from the beginning, we would have a much better command line world today. And I am happy to report that the world has woken up and decided that creating things that are naturally intuitive, like Git has been, I mean, obviously there's a lot of selections here, but let me give you another example. So you can go to any one of these things, right? But let me give you another really good example. IP, the IP command, right? Same thing. It's a you want to call it a monolith, you want to call it a command with subcommands, whatever you want to call it. It has that, and you can kind of keep going, right? You can do address. Okay, I got that, and I go address tab. Oh, look, I can do address, change, delete, flush, and help. I really, really, really love this command because I had nothing to do with this command. nothing to do with it. I did not even know about it. And it has the creators, the brilliant people behind the IP command, have created exactly what I created in Bonsai to the letter. To the letter. Now they do allow dashes and stuff like that. But the fact that they put the help command after the command, that help is a subcommand of the main command, is exactly what I did with Z. So I do Z bonsai, right? So I do Z. My help is way better than that. But if I do Z unique, right? Everything in bonsai comes with an optional embedded help command. So I can type help and I get a man page. And this has been structured exactly like the man pages. And you get this help documentation for free with bonsai. It automatically detects the subcommands as they have been composed into your monolith, and at every level in the command tree, at every level of the command level of your command tree, you get a different help command that is specific to the available commands under that section automatically. And I built that into Bonsai. So the fact that the IP people have actually done the same thing and chose to put help there instead of -H, which is probably also going to work. Nope. Good for you. I love the IP people. Whoever designed the IP command, you are brilliant. You're brilliant, wonderful people. Thank you so much for doing this. And there's a lot of other commands. So netplan is one. I know people don't like netplan, but people are starting to wake up. And we have Git. kubectl is getting better. I think it'll eventually come around and create this kind of interface. But I'm just super happy with that. Now, unfortunately, in order to get color here, I still couldn't set state. So guess what I had to do? You're going to see it, aren't you? I can't set state. So the thing that the people doing these command line interfaces have not yet fully accepted is a way to standardize context. And so my term for this, and this is going to be the term I'm going to propagate going forward, is contextual rooted command trees. Contextual rooted command trees, or stateful rooted command trees. Stateful, contextual. The point is that you should be able to set the state of your switches and do it one at a time. So I'm going to go do this one, I'm going to go do another one. And it's not that most of the time when you want -C on a thing, you always want -C on a thing. Right? And like for kubectl, how many times have you just wanted the namespace to be for a single command during a kubectl session? Pretty much never, right? And so you are forced to go up and redo that exact same command line and rebuild it every time. Because there's no command to set the default namespace. You can in the context, but then you have to go through that convoluted context switching crap because no one has really standardized or thought about a simplified way to do it. Now I have in Bonsai. So in Bonsai, you can actually do var, and var is a generic way to capture variables that are stored statefully in a file for everything for everything in the monolith. And I really wish that we could standardize on this. So the default way to do this is home artifacts Rob. It goes into your home directory. Can you see that my help description is actually specific to my account? You know why? Because I'm running the help command from the command. So I have dynamic help that detects your current situation. That means all of that stateful stuff that we're also adding, guess what? You can leverage that in your help documentation. So when you go man, or instead of doing man, right, you go Z, whatever help, it can actually interrogate the local cache or the variables they've already set, and it will display them in your help. I mean, these are things that are like next level when it comes to thinking about these type of like very extremely human friendly interfaces. And I, just rather than getting angry about it, I went ahead and built it. I would like to see these things incorporated into more things, but being able to standardize on .cache zvars, I mean, you throw away the cache. This is actually probably one of the best use cases for Go. But let me just, it sounds like I'm selling Bonsai here. That's not how I started on this, but Bonsai was, of course, my solution to this. But I have a Z monolith that is here just to show you what I'm talking about. So, and just to show you how easy it is to do this, these are all of the bonsai branches, I call them, which are just commands with their own trees, and I just import them and they're here. That's the end of it. I can create my own dynamic template variables for my help. I can set flags. I can create, if I want to do multi-call, I can do that. Here is a parent command. So this is a command that's different. I mean, you have to get into bonsai. I'll do a whole thing on bonsai. I'm going to write a book about bonsai, actually. The reason I'm doing all this keg stuff is I got a lot of books to write, and one of the books I want to write is bonsai, the book about bonsai, the bonsai guide, because I think, and here's the shortcuts. Here's all my shortcuts through the command tree that goes into the monolith, so that I can bypass some things, right? And stuff. And here it says, here's an example of the help template, which just uses the most amazing templating system in the world. The Go templating system is by far the most powerful that's ever been created. It's so easy to create extensible syntax for your templates and everything. Anyway, so that's it. The rest of this stuff is all pulled in from these other things, including local stuff. So the env go, this is a subcommand I just wrote really quickly. I was like, hey, I just want to print my environment variables. And I, just some quick command stuff. I don't want to get too much into bonsai. I just wanted to show, I wrote some tmux stuff. I'm in the middle of converting all of my bash scripts into a single Z monolith that I can copy onto any target system, including things that running any shell on planet Earth, because this is a binary. It doesn't care how it's being executed at all. And one of the things I haven't added yet is I want to add completion, so that I don't have this yet, but if I just do Z enter, it shows me the help. But I am going to add, so if you wish to, you can set up the default shell, and when you do Z enter, what it'll do is it'll put you into a tab completion terminal mode that's supported on any shell whatsoever, including DOS. So if and when we get that, because that library's already been written, I mean, GH already uses it, right? So the GH tool already uses something to this effect. So it'll create repo create. You're seeing this more and more. It has this whole terminal interactive. It's like a little sort of, it's not truly a command line. It's an interactive terminal session. But for places that don't have completion, I want to be able to just go Z enter and then enter a command and hit tab and have it find the right command on anything whatsoever, because the completion will then be built into the monolith itself in a very tiny, like micro shell, if you will. So that I haven't built that yet, but that's coming, and to me that's where we're going. We have these other things here. I have my pomo command is in here, and pomo start, and there's my pomo up in the corner. Z pomo stop. Anyway, so that's what I don't know, what should we call them? Should we call them stateful or contextual? What should we call them? I think we should call them stateful rooted command trees. That's what I think. I think they're stateful. I think stateful is the right word, because they do have state. I mean, a subcommand might, its switches and stuff might be changed. Now, I also have a config command, which is for, that throws you into a config YAML file and lets you change your configuration for your local system, for your local zbonsai command. And that stuff's not meant to be temporary cache. And that's the kind of thing that you would copy around with you in your dot files. But the vars, bonsai tree, those are all optional, by the way. You don't have to put those into your bonsai tree if you don't want. But if you do put the vars into your bonsai tree, you get stuff under .cache. But then if you go onto another system and you don't take your cache with you, you just get the defaults for all your commands. Unless and it's up to you to kind of decide whether you want to implement your bonsai tree command using config. Which can use a centralized config, by the way, one config for an entire monolith, because you're able to like drill down, and versus having cached variables that are there. Now the amount of time it takes to read from those variables and all that stuff is so infinitesimally small that it's not an issue. It's not an issue. It might have been an issue in 1976, but it's not anymore. So that's what that's about. That's really all I have to say about that. So I encourage people to play around, and if you discover a stateful rooted node tree, rooted command tree somewhere, um, let me know, and we can, put these together. I'd really like to kind of see how the world is waking up and throwing get opt out. Thank God. Uh, dashes be damned. The other great thing about this is that these interfaces that we're building can easily be spoken if you pick words that are real. I've tested this on my Pixel, my Google Pixel with natural language. So I mean, people are already using command lines. We have like salespeople using command lines because they're using Slack, right? So somebody writes a Slack bot or a Twitch bot, and maybe they put an exclamation point in front of it, but they put a bot in there, and then the bot is processing is processing these messages all the time, and those messages are real. So the more realistic and human that we make our interfaces, the simpler we make them without all the dashes. You could never do this with GetOpt, right? But if we actually move to a stateful rooted node tree command kind of situation, all of our commands on the command line can be directly implemented as bot commands with no modification. And now you can go into your favorite chat app in Slack or in Twitch or whatever, and you can speak your commands to the thing. And that is really the future. Now, you don't need a full-blown machine learning algorithm to process every possible thing here. You just need the definition of a domain-specific language so that you can tell your bot or your system or your whatever about it and then do it. Alexa's already doing this. Siri's already doing this. They already have got, in fact, if you've ever written an Alexa conversational command, and I was really into conversational UI for a long time, about 4 years ago, I created a thing called Skizix and Sava, which is conversational assistant virtual agent. But I haven't gone anywhere with that since then. But I do believe that the future is going to be conversational interfaces. So the more we can start using stateful rooted node tree commands, the closer we're going to get to conversational interactions with our computerized systems. To those, sci-fis in the 1970s that we saw where people were talking to the computers and telling them what to do. Until we create conversation, until we get to the point where we're getting rid of GetOps, I can run an IP command by speaking it into my command line if I had a voice interface. I can do it. I can't do that with GPG. Imagine that example. I want to create a new GPG key, right? Or I want to encrypt something with GPG. Can I speak the command to my computer at this moment and have it work? No. But I could, if I wanted to look up the current IP address for a specific Ethernet configuration, assuming my conversational interface let me spell out, individual Ethernet IDs, which would be great if some of the conversational UIs would start to allow that. If they would have a keyword that said spell blah, 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 or whatever, we could actually start doing that. And then we can start using our fancy microphones to write code or to interact with these systems. And we will not ever be able to do that until the world wakes up, as it has been, and starts using stateful rooted node command trees, or if you wish, just natural language command line UIs, which is what it is. I mean, I kind of think that's probably the better way to say it. We should start to use natural language command line UIs. And maybe that means that we put, we make certain words optional. Maybe we do. Maybe we say if somebody puts an article in there or something that we, they don't have to talk like a robot to interact with their command line conversational UI. Maybe we use regular expressions. Actually, that's what Skizix and Kava were. They actually, I wrote an app. I got to go find it again. But I started writing a conversational UI that used a regular expression to match any of the rooted node tree commands. And now that I think about it, that's probably something we could add to Bonsai. The only problem with that is that right now the way that the node tree works, you have to have a single unique thing through it. But if we could ever create a way to add helper words that are ignored, the or whatever, without going full blown machine learning algorithm model, we could actually start speaking in very, very natural ways to our monoliths and do things like that. So, and I look forward to the day. I mean, just being able to tab through something to me is like plenty good for now. because I don't like reading about all the help and everything. I think you should be able to immediately understand what your options are on any command just by hitting tab. I mean, if you can't do that, if you have to go slog through a man page, I mean, you should be able to see boom and see all your options and go, this one looks really good. And to Cobra's credit, I will tell them this: they, if you tab through this, wait, that's not the one I'm thinking of. Which is the one that does it? There's one. No, that's not it. There's one that will actually give you a summary, like a very long-winded description. Oh no, GH. There it is. It'll give you a long-winded description, and it runs it into more and everything when you do this, right? And I do find that kind of interesting that it does that. The reason the way it's doing that is it's actually running a shell script. In order to get you that, and that's a bonsai thing, and that's very shell dependent, and they have different versions for each shell, and I feel like that's nice and all, but it's definitely not portable. So but I wanted to show this because it does show how you could break down the description of what each of the things are, but I don't even think you really need that. I think you just need to be able to just do Z tab and you should be able to look at all of these different things and go, what is that one about, right? And then just do path help, and you can see the help. Okay, path doesn't have that. Path must be a shortcut to something else, and I actually don't know which one it is. It is a shortcut. I probably should have a shortcuts command or something. That is something that I want to look at. So I mean, help here will show me. I think actually my help does show my shortcuts. It does. There it goes. It does. Yay! I did something good. So path is env get path. So if I were to do z env help, and that would give me that, and you can actually do help help. I'm being repressed. So yeah, you can actually, the help command has a bunch of subcommands, and it does its own parsing of the thing and everything. So I mean, that's all I have for this YouTube video. But I encourage you, as I said, to consider making human-friendly interfaces. At the end of the day, that's what we're talking about. And human-friendly these days means conversational, and that in this case means a stateful command tree. And I'm gonna just shorten it. I'm gonna say stateful command trees. And there, we made up a new term. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Am I YouTubey enough yet?